Hi Soap Witches, this is B from Sorcery Soap and Hocus Pocus Crafts, and this is my morning inspirational for you, hopefully. So let's start the year off right, at least on a good note, for real, because every year I think I'm going to do that, and I make resolutions and I don't keep them, and there's a whole host of behaviors that I've done in the past that I just don't want to do anymore, so I'm not going to, and I was hoping that I could invite you to do the same with me, and I'll do my best not to bang on the table. So one of the things I was thinking this morning is that there's a lot of new soap people in the world for us, those of us that are in the soap making world, and there's a courtesy and a protocol, generally speaking, that you ask for help in a polite way. But you don't necessarily ask for people's secret recipes. And I'm only saying this because I wasn't told this. No one told me. I didn't know. And the reason being is it's sort of like, it's a craft, and a craft is something that you work at and that you build a skill with and that you learn insights and you educate yourself and you discover certain things that no one's told you, and those all come with a cost. And it's sort of like walking into someone's house and saying, give me your favorite cookie recipe or whatever recipe, just give it to me. And I think it's a nice thing to trade. I think it's a nice thing to be ahead of the curve and make the situation so lovely that you've thought for both parties, and that you're going to tip the scales in the direction of the person that you're trying to get information from so well that they're going to be excited to work with you. So give more than you get is my philosophy, and the universe will respond. And I say the universe, I mean the energy matrix, not just the internet and all that stuff, but the actual energy matrix. And sort of like the idea that the ancients had, that if you ever take any herb from the environment, that you give an offering, say thanks, do a prayer, something. I was taught that you give tobacco sometimes if that's what you need to do. And so here's why I'm talking about this, because if we're going to set our intentions correctly, then we kind of have to decode what's been happening. And I don't know if you know this, but so when you get a certain amount of people following you, some people think that you're an influencer. That's what they call it. And all of us influence each other all the time. And one of the things they do is they promise you to promote your brand if you give them something. Now, I'm not a materialist. I don't think material world is the most important thing. And I temper my facts because I see things and I understand things that have no provable fact except to me. So when I see this is how I break it down. So you're offering me something imaginary, a promise. I don't even know you. You haven't built any trust with me, but you're offering me a promise if I give you real goods. So I learned a long time ago, I worked with a big magazine. They had a pretty good following. They're a literal magazine. And I think I've told you this story before, so I'll just sort of cruise over it a bit. But so they wanted some of my soaps, and they wanted me to make this particular type of soap. And I was just starting out and I didn't know, but I was like all excited and I was like, oh, they gave me some attention, woo. And so I went through this whole thing and their communication was subpar. I mean, they couldn't get back to me. Every time I'd email them, they weren't very responsive and all this stuff. So I finally got an address. I made the soap. I gave them a presentation. I sent it to them. And I remember this. It cost me $27 to send it to them. And that was a lot of money for me at that moment. You figure I paid for my first desk. It was $57. I remember that. Over at IKEA. I got a little intuitive hit. I lived near IKEA at the time. I was in a big city. And I got an intuitive hit. Oh, you should probably stop at IKEA on the way home from work. Because I had another job. Just to see what's out there. Because I needed a bigger table. And so I went over there. And in the returns area, they had this table. It was pretty sturdy and pretty big. I still have it today, by the way. And so I picked it up and it fit in my car at the time. And I did it all by myself. And I was very proud of myself to do it. Not that I couldn't, but, you know, I didn't ask my partner for help at all. And he came home and I go, look what I got. I paid for it with my earnings and I was all happy about it. So I'd sent this box to this company for $27 plus all the effort it took and all the things I did to present the box. So that was like, you know, almost $100. It was a lot of money for me. And so I sent, I'm just going to say, I mean, you're listening to somebody who thinks $5 is a lot of money and $10 is too much for a bar soap, but whatever. And so I sent it to them and I didn't hear and I didn't hear. And then finally, after sort of bugging them, they contacted me back and they said, oh, if you could just do it this way. And I was like, oh, I considered it. And then we went back and forth and they just didn't respond. They weren't responsive. And I got the feeling that they didn't like me, that there was a bit of contempt for me somehow. And I'm like, I'm a pretty reasonable person. I find myself reasonable. And when I'm not reasonable or I make a mistake, I say as sincerely as I can, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'll do better. Like, those are magic words. I'm not kidding. Those are very magic words. But you have to do it with sincerity. It has to be true. So we went back and forth, and the whole process took months. And I was like chomping at the bit because I thought, oh, this could get a lot of attention to my soap works. Finally, there was something that happened. I don't remember. And plus, I'm picking up on energies that isn't exactly fact-based. And if I bring it to the surface about these non-fact-based energies, generally the person will deny it because they can't see it either, even though I know. And I'm sure you all like figure that out a long time ago. Anyway. So I don't know, this is a long convoluted story, but the end result is she got really upset with me. So it meant that I landed, I was over target, and what I said to her was true. And if you ask my husband, he'll tell you, I don't call people names. I don't go for the low blow, particularly when things are heated. I don't do any of those things. But my truth in the heat of the moment can be pointed. And I acknowledge that. So anyway, she basically, I basically fired her. I said, I'm not going to work with you. And she threw some slings and arrows at me. And I said, so I learned a long time ago, many years ago when I was dating, that if you want to know somebody's true character, tell them no. And then just sit back and watch. And so I did. And I saw and I was like, oh, and I'd been guided to not do this whole process for a long time. And I just kept ignoring it. And then I find, because I was on their newsletter, I find that they found somebody else to make exactly what they asked me to make. And it was my design exactly. And they called it their own. And I thought, well, good for you. Nothing I could do about it, So that is not the way you want to work with someone. I'm just saying that's not a good idea. But I found if you want to work with someone, because I think collaborations are really a great idea. I mean, true collaborations, not this. I mean, there's a whole host of horrible things out in the world right now, but there's a lot of good things if we can find them, and that's the problem. Well, situation, inconvenience. That's the thing that I want to work through, is shining my light so crazy bright that the people that I'm supposed to be near or around or influenced back or in relationship with are just attracted to that. To me, it seems like so easy. How did I not know this? How did I not see this? And so that I don't have to even think about any of the negative stuff that people say or do or whatever. And you know what? There's going to be a ton of people that don't like us, don't like me, don't like you. Who cares? I mean, who cares? In the moment, it hurts. But in the big picture, I mean, really, who cares? So anyway, so what I want to do is collaborate with the people that will be thrilled to work with us, to work with me. And many years ago, I used to buy and sell properties. And one of the things I was taught is that you try to think of the negotiation so both parties walk away pleased. And that, to me, is the responsible thing. Because most people aren't aware of even what they really want. And if you have even a smidge of empathy, then you understand what their motives are, what their goals are. And for example, and this is tricky, and all of it is very tricky, and you have to be super honest and have good intention, or have, let's put it this way, maybe not good intentions, like, you know, sometimes you go good and sometimes you have bad intentions, but at least neutral to good intentions, because, you know, it's all gray. But so what we want to do is make it easy to work together, ultimately, right? And, you know, one of the things I realized in the past when making these videos is I always think that you're in a hurry. And it never occurred to me that maybe you want to have a conversation. I mean, we can't really talk to each other, which maybe we will someday, but you leave the last video I put up and you left truly, I mean, the comments just brought tears to my eyes. I felt lots of emotion, and to me, that's a great connection. So if you have ways that you think you want to work with somebody, I mean, let's talk about it and put it in the comments, and I can tell you how the ways I worked and the ones that I worked with other people and failed. Because there's always going to be golems. There's going to be the hangers-on and the people that will feed off of your goodwill and good works and just take and not really give you anything back and think that it's all in their favor. And then when you call them on it, they attack you. So there's ways to protect yourself from that I've learned the hard way. Anyway, that's a hard lesson. But let's move into the upcoming year. This is what I'm thinking. Let's move up into the upcoming year with a fresh vision and inspiration and leading with our intuition, which is, you know, that's a hard compass. I mean, that takes a lot of effort, a lot of work to be clear about your intuition. Because it's not like it comes with bells every day. It's not like it knocks on your door and you go, oh, someone's here. Some days, I mean. But I think that our own internal weather vanes are, if they're sincere, and that's hard, you know, but the perceived matrix doesn't like that because it can't manipulate it very easily. And there's multiple levels about the perceived matrix. It's not just social. It's not just electronic. It's not just the controlling bodies. And anybody that has altered their reality knows what I'm talking about. So there are truths and there are truths. There is reality and there's reality. And I look around my environment and I don't see those controlling bodies. And I think there's a lot of people that are talking about this right now, which I find delightful, because I just kind of walk around my own house, my own world, and I go, try and stop me. You're not going to do anything, are you? It's just all in my mind. That's interesting. My imagination's in my mind too, and I make that real. So which one am I going to choose? The fear part or my imagination? Because when all this, I don't know which round of craziness we're talking about, I had some fear that I was like, I had to say to my husband, I'm like, well, it's not as if they had checkpoints. I could just leave the state. I could just drive and look at the world. And they were threatening with all this, oh, you can't be closer than this and that and the other. I'm like, it's all made up. I know that's controversial, but it is. It was all made up. Every freaking bit of it. And it's starting to come out that it was all made up. Oh. But that's somebody else's reality and they want to live into that. Cool. Live into that. I make up stuff in my mind all the time, change my life. I moved 1,000 miles away from where I was during all that craziness. People were so lovely. People are lovely here. That's my reality. And I make up stuff all the time and make it into soap and connect with other people. I made up all my books. I did all the research, of course. I experimented. But it's not like there were books about soap dough everywhere. I figured it out. And it helped to change my life, connect me with you. So I think maybe that's really where we want to go, is what kind of reality do you want to live into in the next year? Like, if you can make anything up, what do you want to make up? I'm not going to be driven by fear anymore. I have a limited amount of time left, just like everybody. And I think back when I was a kid and all the fears that tried to control me. Some of them I listened to, and I mean, what's the point of all that? Seriously, like, there was one time I was selling something. I was living in a city. And these two people showed up. And I lived in a gated sort of apartment building. So I had to come out and walk them in. And I met them and I saw them. And I'm like, these are not people. It doesn't matter if it's true or not, but that was what I felt. And I felt that they were dangerous, and that this is what I thought. I don't know where the voice came from or what the thing was, but it said, if they come in, they'll take it. They intend you harm. And it wasn't like a clear voice. It was like more like I perceived it. And so I made up an excuse and I said, yeah, I can't continue. I don't remember what I said. It wasn't perfect. I just said, yeah, I've changed my mind. You don't need to ask permission from anybody. Like, you don't. I didn't ask permission. This is my world. I turned around and I said, I changed my mind. And they got flustered and, what are you talking about? This and that. I said, I've decided I'm not going to sell it after all. And so, here, let me walk you out. And I turned to get them to go. And they resisted immediately. immediately, and I saw them, and then they started making fun of me and trying to run me down. And I could see, remember what I said about if you really want to know what somebody's about, tell them no and see how gracious they are or see how they'll attack you? Yep, I told them no. And they turned on me so fast that I knew my intuition was dead on. And what's the worst that could happen if I didn't sell that to them? What's the very worst that could happen? Nothing. I was exactly where I was, but safe. Fine. Listen to my intuition. What's the worst that could happen if I didn't listen to myself? Oh, they could jump me and take my stuff, and way more than anything I'd anticipated, but it would have been dangerous. So I turned around and I insisted, and I even said to them, because I was looking at them now like they're demons, like they're not even real humans, right? Because real human beings don't do those things. And I looked at them and I said, you can make fun of me all you want, but you're not getting in. And by now I'm like, wow. I mean, this all happened in a few seconds. And I was like, this is just funny. This is really funny. But the other thing that happened is I listened to my body and my adrenaline kicked off. And I was like, I'm ready to go. We're going to fight. I'll fight both of you guys right here, but you're not getting into my house. And so I turned them around and, and then the whole time, this is all the internal world. The outside world wasn't doing any of that stuff. And I said, here, let me walk you out. And I finally got them out, but they were just shaking their head. They're super confused. And it wasn't anything the way they looked, although they looked a little bit disheveled. They looked a little bit like they've been living rough, but I didn't want to judge, right? See, there's that thing in my head. Don't judge. Don't be judgmental. No, we judge all the time. Just be honest about that judgment. Evaluate, judge constantly. And you got to learn. I had to learn to trust myself. That was one level of trusting myself. So, yeah, so I kept it was computer gear. I kept my computer gear. I was like, whoo, I think I just escaped something. Because I felt glorious on the other side. I was very excited about my endeavors and my experience. So anyway, I've gone in a couple different tangents, and that's just the way it is this morning. And obviously I just woke up. I'm still in my pajamas, but I had my coffee already, and I just wanted to start the day out with striving to be the intention and not editing and not thinking too much about it, because I think it's more important that I get over myself and that we connect and continue on this foray into this world I'm not sure about yet, and I'll just experiment with it. I mean, that's all I know, and trust in my gut, trust in my intuition, trust in my heart, because some of you that made comments in the last video, it just made my heart sing. Like, still, just thinking about it brings... Anyway, because I don't know that any of us is this guy, blah, blah, blah. I don't know any of us have this figured out. Some of us are going to cut the wake for each other. And sometimes I'll need someone to cut the wake for me. But right now, what I'm doing is trying to bring more good than harm to the world. And I think the world needs that. I mean, I think every reality could use that. I don't see there's a downside to that. So as long as I continue to put my best foot forward, well, maybe not like interview process, but best intention forward, I think that we can go somewhere together that will be better than what we had, maybe. At least we'll be together. And don't pet a cobra. So I think that's always good advice. Don't pet a cobra. Maybe I escaped that. I don't know. That was a weird story. I didn't even remember that until I started talking to y'all. Because, man, some of the things I've lived through, it's crazy. Maybe one day I'll tell you about the Yeah, I'll save that for another day. So I hope that your New Year's is starting off on the right foot. If you need any soap help, just holler. I'd be happy to try and help you. I have been making soap and soap dough, for those of you who don't know, for a lot of years, almost 10 years or maybe 10 years now. And I don't want any of that knowledge to go to waste, so I'd be happy to try and help. I'm not asking for anything back. Just to build a relationship, and that is what it is. So it's always an exchange of some sort, and it's good to know what people's motives are. I think that a good sign, before I leave, I think a good sign for me, this is one of the mile markers I use, is when I leave the exchange, do I feel full, neutral, full, or less than? Less than is not ideal. If I feel like deflated or insecure or in some capacity, at least not in a neutral, like I can't get to neutral right away, I have to check it. I have to check. And I can't put the blame on the other person. I have to ask what I just encountered and how I'm interpreting that and what I'm doing to process that. If I feel neutral and I go, yeah, that was nice. That's pretty neutral to me. Yeah, pleasant. If I feel elated, I also have to ask. So, I wonder why I feel so happy about that situation. And really check myself. But be aware of it. And, there's some people there's two people in my life that my husband and I get together with periodically, and I just love them so much. And one of the reasons, they're so pleasant to us. And I feel better. I feel like a better human being when I'm around them. And one of the things that happens, and this got acknowledged early on in our relationship, was we all talk and have so many ideas floating around, and there's no structure. It's not like we talk about this, we talk about that, and we always have this thing that we talk about. We just sit. We don't even drink coffee, tea, anything. We just sit and talk. And I always feel like leaving that encounter, I always feel like I'm a better human being. To me, that's a good mile marker. And it's like being in a dream. I almost forget what we talked about, but then I don't, because I talk about it with my husband afterwards, and then we're like, oh yeah, that was cool, and oh, that's so good that that's happening. And we wish each other joy, and we wish each other goodwill. So I think that's probably a good mile marker. I try to be neutral, but try to come from a neutral place, truly, because I don't have any of it figured out exactly. I've just considered some things, I think. So anyway, yeah, that's the last of it. And we'll see where this goes and see how it all works out, and if we want to keep doing this, or if it helps, and tell me what you use it for. If you actually sit down and listen to this and watch me, or you don't care if I am on here and you just want to hear me talk about something, I'm open to that too. Maybe we should do a podcast or something like that. And yeah, I'll leave all of my other thoughts for another day, maybe tomorrow. So let's see where this goes. Okay, so Happy New Year, and let me know if you're cutting the wake for someone else, or you feel like someone's cutting the wake for you. How about that? Let's just start there. Okay, bye.